Okay, so this is the key to worksheet 7.5 part A. And so the direction says to solve each rational equation, state the restrictions if any, and then show a work as presented in class or the required videos. All right, so first of all, let's talk about the restriction. What can't x be? So remember, when you're dealing with rational expressions, you want to look at the denominator in terms of what variable or what value I cannot use for x. So if you look at this, this is x, this is 3x. This denominator has no variables, so I don't worry about that denominator. But if I look at this denominator and this denominator, again, always make sure it's factored first. So when you look at a few other examples, I guess in part B, you're going to want to make sure that your denominators are factored. But these are monomials, so basically all you do is basically look at the denominator, set equals 0, and solve for x. Well, this equation, x is already by itself. And if you do the other one, see that 3x, and set it equal to 0, you get the same thing. Divide by both sides by 3, you'd x be 0. So in either case, your restriction is that x cannot equal 0. Because when x is 0, that makes this denominator 0, that makes that denominator 0. So remember, you cannot divide by 0. All right, now the LCD, if you look at all your factors, this is an x, there's one factor here, there's one factor of x here, and there's none here, so I'm going to need one factor of x. In terms of your coefficients, this is a 3, this is a 5, so the LCD of 3 and 5 is 15. The least common multiple of 3 and 5 is 15. So the LCD should be 15x. Now, once you find the LCD, you're going to multiply. Remember, this is an equation now. So the best way to solve a rational equation is to multiply both sides by the LCD. So you want to clear your fractions. So I'm going to rewrite. I'm going to write this over. Now, the left side has two fractions in it, so I'm going to put that in parentheses because every fraction has to be multiplied by 15x by the LCD. So every term has to be multiplied by the LCD. So I'm going to say 15x times the left side, put that in parentheses, since there are two fractions, two terms, and 15x. So what I do to the left side, I got to do to the right side, so I can multiply both sides but the LCD. So 15x times the fraction that's on your right side. Now notice I did not put that in parentheses. I could have, but I did not put it in parentheses since there's just one term. Okay, now we're going to get rid of the parentheses I brought up here by distributing. So I get 15x times 4 over x, so do one thing at a time, minus 15x times 7 over 3x, equal, and then 15x times 2/5. So all I did was I multiplied all of these fractions, so every fraction I saw, I multiplied it by the LCD. Okay, now we're going to reduce. So x goes into x one time, x goes into x one time, and I'm left with 15 times 1 times 4, which is 60. So I get 60. Minus, subtract. Over here, these x's divide out. The 3 goes in 3 one time, 3 goes in 15 5 times. So remember, the whole idea of multiplying by the LCD is to clear the fractions. Notice that I no longer have a factor of x, but I have a factor of 1. I no longer have a factors of 3x, but I have a factor of 1. And then 5 times 1 times 7 is 35. Equal. And then over here, reduce. 5 into 5 is 1 time. 5 into 15 is 3 times. So I get 3 times x times 2 is 6x. So that's where I'm at. So notice I went from a rational equation to a linear equation. And notice to solve this linear equation, these are like terms here. So 60 minus 35 is 25. And that's going to equal 6x. And to get x by itself, right now multiplying by 6, the opposite is divide by 6. And so I get x to be 25 over 6. So that's your solution. That's not your restriction. So 25 over 6 is your solution. Okay, over here, again, make sure your denominators are factored. This denominator is x minus 8. This denominator is 1, 3 over 1. And this denominator is x minus 8. So since these two denominators are the same, just set one of them equal to 0. So find out what makes this denominator 0. Well, this denominator, n minus 8, is going to equal 0 when n equals 8. So that's what x cannot equal. So x cannot equal 8 because when I plug in 8 into the denominator, the variable n, I get 8 minus 8, which is 0. So if I do all this work and I only get that n equals 8, then I'm going to, right here, I'm going to say no solution because I can't use it. All right, so let's see what we get, though. Again, notice that the LCD is going to be n minus 8, so that one was an easy one. And I'm going to multiply both sides by n minus 8. So notice that this is two terms here, two fractions. So I'm going to put that in parentheses and multiply by n minus 8. So n minus 8 times 2 divided by n minus 8 plus 3 over 1 equal n minus 8 times a negative 4 divided by n minus 8. So that's what I wrote. So both of these, both sides have to be multiplied by n minus 8. So notice I put that in parentheses because every fraction has to be multiplied by n minus 8. Now we're going to distribute. So go ahead and distribute. So I get n minus 8 times 2 divided by n minus 8 plus n minus 8 times 3. Now I'm going to go ahead in this case and put n minus 8 in parentheses because all of that has to be multiplied by 3. So you're going to end up distributing here. Equal, and then n minus 8 times negative 4 divided by n minus 8. Alright, now, technically, if you wanted to, you could have put that in parentheses right here, the n minus 8. You could have done that as well. N minus 8, n minus 8. It's up to you. But that was really necessary, because if you didn't put it, at some point you probably would have said n minus 24, and that's not correct. Alright, so that parentheses was extremely important here. Okay, now reducing n minus 8 into n minus 8, I get factors of 1. 1 times 2 is 2. Plus, all right, now here's what I was talking about. So you have to distribute here. So you can say n times 3 is 3n minus 8 times 3 is 24 equal. And over here, you reduce the n minus 8's divide out. You're left with factors of 1. And so you just get a negative 4. So again, notice I went from a rational equation to a linear equation. All right, so let's solve this linear equation. So combine like terms. I'm going to get 3n minus 22. The positive 2 and a negative 24 is about negative 22 equal negative 4. Add 22 to both sides. Combine like terms. That's 0 here. So I get 3n equal 18. Divide both sides by 3. I get n to be 6. Now, your 6 is not a restriction, so that's going to be your solution. So my solution is 6. And you can always check. Again, you have time in a worksheet to check. But always go back to the original, and wherever you see the variable n, you plug in 6. So let's see if it works. So I get 2 divided by 6n is 6, so 6 minus 8 plus 3, and I want to see if that's going to equal negative 4 divided by 6 minus 8. All right, well, 6 minus 8 is a negative 2, so this becomes 2 over negative 2 plus 3. And I want to see if that's going to equal negative 4 over negative 2. So 6 minus 8 is a negative 2. 2 divided by negative 2 is a negative 1, so I get negative 1 plus 3. And I want to see if that's going to equal 2. A negative 4 divided by a negative 2 is a positive 2. Negative 1 plus 3 is a 2. So those do equal. So 6 works. All right, now again, assuming that all this is correct, and this did not turn out to be your restriction, then that's your solution. Okay, number 3, the LCD, it's already factored. Well, I'm sorry, it's you can't factor the denominator, so you can't go any further than factoring this. But the restriction is going to be 4, since this denominator is x plus 4, and this is the same one, and this is a 1 right here, 3 over 1. You just take x plus 4, find out what that one's 0, and it turns out that this denominator is 0 when x equals negative 4. So you restrictions at x cannot equal negative 4. So again, if you do all this work and you get x to be negative 4, and that's the only x you got, then you would say no solution. All right, so the LCD is going to be x plus 4. So just like we did in the previous problem, you're going to multiply both sides by x plus 4. Now this is one fraction on this side, so I'm going to say x plus 4 times that fraction equal. And then over here, we'll put that in parentheses, x plus 4 times these two fractions, 3 over 1 minus 4 over x plus 4. Okay, now distributing this, and let's just rewrite this over. I get x plus 4 times x divided by x plus 4 equal x plus 4 times 3. And again, put that in parentheses because that 3 has to be multiplied by all these terms in here, minus x plus 4 times 4 divided by x plus 4. Okay, so reducing and distributing. So reducing here, simplifying, I get, that's going to be x over here, that's an equal sign, equal. Over here, simplifying by reducing, by using distributive property. I get x times 3 is 3x, and then 4 times 3 is 12. And then here, the x plus 4's divide out. So you may want to put this in parentheses because that's really, you're subtracting x plus 4 times 4. So that should have been in parentheses. And then these divide out, so you get minus 1 times 4, which is 4. Alright, so again, I went from a rational equation to a linear equation. So combined like terms, I get, that's going to be 3x plus 8. Alright, now subtract 3x from both sides. X minus 3x is a negative 2x equal 8. So negative 2x equal 8. Divide both sides by negative 2. I get x to be a negative 4. Negative 4. Alright, notice that that was your restriction. So that cannot be your solution because when I go back to the original problem and I substitute negative 4 into x in the denominator, it doesn't matter what the numerator is the denominator. Negative 4 plus 4 is 0, so I can never divide by 0. So remember, that's your restriction. So in this case, you would say no solution. That's what you would write. No solution. Okay, now number 4. Notice that all these are monomials. So if you took the first denominator, took the second denominator, and took the third denominator, and you said that all equal to 0, you'll notice that in each case, x equals 0. So 4x equals 0. So in other words, 4x equals 0. Divide by 4. You get x to be 0. Here, x squared equals 0. Take the square root of both sides. Remember the square root property. Square root of both sides. Sorry, right here. X squared equals 0. Take the square root of both sides. You get x to be plus or minus 0, which is 0. Here, again, 2x squared. So it equals 0. And you could have looked at this and to ask yourself, 2 times what number is 0? Well, that had to be 0. But anyway, divide both sides by 2. I get x squared to be 0, which now brings us back to this one. So x squared equals 0, which brings us back to this one. So take the square root of both sides, plus or minus. We get x equals plus or minus 0, which is 0. So your restriction in all these cases is 0. And you didn't have to do all this. You could have looked at this and asked yourself, 4 times what is 0? What times itself is 0? 2 times what squared is 0? And the answer is 0 in each case. But the LCD, now notice the LCD is going to be, in terms of your coefficients 4, 1, and 2, I'm going to need a 4. In terms of the factors of x, there's 1x here, 2 here, 2 here, so I'm going to need 2 of them. So the LCD is 4x squared. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear the fractions. So I'm going to multiply both sides by the LCD. This left side has 2 fractions in it, so I'm going to put that in parentheses. I'm going to say 4x squared times 7 divided by 4x minus 3 divided by x squared equal. And then that's just one fraction, so I'm not going to put parentheses. I'm just going to say 4x squared times 1 over 2x squared. Okay, now distributing here, I get 4x squared times 7 divided by 4x minus 4x squared times 3 divided by x squared equal. And then 4x squared times 1 divided by 2x squared. Okay, now let's reduce. These 4's divide out here, so that was simple. Now, there's a factor of x here, there's 2 in here, 2 in the numerator. So I'm going to divide all of these out here and be left with only one factor of x up here. So basically I have 1 times x times 7, which is 7x. Over here, the x squareds divide out. So you get 4 times 3, which is 12. So this becomes 7x minus 12 equal. Over here, the x squareds divide out. 2 into 2 is 1. 2 into 4 is 2. So you get 2 times 1 times 1, which is 2. So I went from a rational equation to a linear equation. And then to solve this one, you're going to add 12 to both sides. And so you get 7x equal 14. Divide both sides by 7. I get x to be 2. Now, 2 is not a restriction. So assuming I did all this correctly, then 2 is my solution. And again, you can check this. Let's just check this one. You can go and check it. Check x equal 2. Check x equal 2. So go back to the original. So where you see the variable x, you plug in 2. So I get 7 divided by 4 times 2, which is 8, minus 3 divided by 2 squared, which is 4, equal. And we see that's going to equal 1 divided by 2 times 2 squared, which is 4. So the question is 7/8 subtract 3/4 the same as 1/8? 7/8 subtract 3/4 the same as 1/8. Well, the LCD is 8, and you can use your calculator, but the LCD is 8, so I get 7/8 minus times 2 times 2, so 3/4 is the same as 6/8, and 7/8 minus 6/8 is 1/8, and that's what you wanted. Okay, so 2 is the solution. All right, so that takes care of the key to 7.5, Part A.